Welcome to Sex Ed with DB. I'm your host, DB. Let's get into it. So you've had pleasurable sex. Yay. But then you get a yeast infection. It's painful, itchy, and a sign your vaginal microbiome could use some support. Happy V creates scientifically sound products to support vaginal, gut, and immune health. Their prebiotic and probiotic is formulated with 7 clinically studied probiotic strains at clinically effective dosages, plus a patented prebiotic to help good bacteria thrive. If you want to support your vaginal health from the inside out, head to happyv.com. Use code SEXEDWITHDB for 15% off your first order, or up to 30% when you start a subscription. That's happyv.com. happyv as in vagina.com. Okay, quick reality check. Every 25 seconds, someone discovers Lem, Nancy's incredible best-selling lemon-shaped toy. There are over 15,000 reviews with a 4.7-star rating, and over 1 million O's delivered. People call it life-changing, powerful, and honestly, it's a little shocking for something that looks this cute. It's quiet, it's easy to use, and those little pulsing air sensations build in a way that hits just right. Try it yourself at hellonancy.com and use code SEXEDWITHDB for 25% off.
Well, hello there. It's Amy from the Shameless Sex Podcast, where learning about sex and relationships is anything but boring. We're sex educators, authors, and your new favorite dynamic duo, here to make things fun, spicy, and actually applicable to your everyday life. Think pleasure tips, better communication, and endless ideas for creating the sex life of your dreams. We've got nearly 500 episodes, with a fresh one released every week. World-renowned guests like Dan Savage, Nina Hartley, Dr. Tara, Jessica Drake, and of course the amazing Danielle Bezalel. Plus, we've been featured in Cosmo, Men's Health, and Maxim. So yeah, there's a reason why we are in the top 1% of podcasts. From how to level up your oral skills to mastering dirty talk and building real confidence in the bedroom, we will get you there. So go ahead, search Shameless Sex on your favorite podcast app, hit follow, and get ready to laugh, learn, and feel a lot more shameless.
Hello, Sex Ed with DB listener. If you love science-based conversations about sex and relationships, then I think the Sex and Psychology podcast will become one of your new favorite shows. Hosted by Dr. Justin Lehmiller, a social psychologist, author, and senior research fellow at the Kinsey Institute, this podcast offers a deep dive into the science of intimacy, desire, and connection. Each week, Justin sits down with leading experts to discuss topics like attraction, love, communication, fantasies, orgasm, pleasure, and so much more. What I love about this show is that it takes cutting-edge research and turns it into practical insights you can actually use in your everyday life. Whether you've ever wondered what your sexual fantasies reveal about you, how to keep the spark alive, how to explore your kinky side, or how to successfully navigate open relationships, there's an episode for you. With more than 500 episodes released to date, there's a huge library of fascinating conversations to explore. Use the link in our episode description to start with one of my favorite episodes, How to Have Amazing Sex, featuring sex therapist Dr. Emily Jamea. Then subscribe to the Sex and Psychology podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Hello, and welcome back to Sex Ed with DB. I'm DB, your favorite sex educator and pleasure expert. And today we're talking about polycules with our guest, Rachel Wright, a licensed psychotherapist, speaker, and educator specializing in modern relationships. You may be thinking, what is a polycule, and why do people want to be in one? Is it an orientation or a lifestyle? Is it just cheating under a different name? As I talk about with Rachel, every single polyamorous relationship and polycule is different, and there might be a lot more to polycules than you expect. If you are poly or in a polycule, I hope this episode makes you feel represented in the nuanced way that you deserve. If you're monogamous, I hope this episode will open your mind a little as to why polyamory is such a joy for so many people and living in a polycule. And if you're not sure, I hope this episode helps you think outside the box about what a relationship can look like. There's been a lot of talk about polyamory recently, especially since the publication of Lindy West's Adult Braces, which dropped after we recorded this episode, FYI. So in case you're curious about our thoughts on how polyamory is talked about in this memoir, we've linked an article about the book in the show notes by media critic Ashley Ray, who's also been poly for years. Now, don't forget to stay tuned to the end of the episode for your pleasure practice of the week. Let's dive into this conversation with Rachel Wright. Hello, Rachel. How's it going today?
Hello. It's going well. Crazy as usual with 2 toddlers and going well.
Wow. Two toddlers. That's tough. That's a lot. And I mean, just to gas you up for a second, I've been a fan of you and your work and your transparency about your family and your poly dynamic on the internet for a very long time. And I think it's so great that you're here to talk about polycules and families and what that's like to experience pleasure in a polycule. And we have had poly-based episodes here on the show, but we have not necessarily talked about polycules and what that's like, and had someone who's actually been in a polycule and is in a polycule and has a successful experience. And so I'm very, very excited to have you on here today to talk all about that. And before we get into the deets, we're going to start with the quick and dirty, which is our rapid fire segment where we get to know our expert through some bold questions, some honest answers, and the key here is real pleasure-centered insight. We're talking all about pleasure this season. The folks have loved the past seasons all about pleasure, so we're continuing on with that. And we have a few questions here where this is going to be tough, but I'm going to ask for 1 sentence answers, and then we can always expand in the interview here, which again, very, very tough for those of us who are quite verbose, myself included. But I'm wondering, what is the number one thing that non-poly people get wrong about being in a polycule?
That it's all sex.
Oh, that's their assumption.
Yes. Or that it is inherently harder than a monogamous 2-person relationship.
That is so good. And you answered the call in doing this in 1 sentence. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm very impressed. And we'll hold on to those insights and we'll dig further in a bit. Okay. What's one thing that poly people themselves get wrong about being in a polycule?
That jealousy is some sort of indication that something is wrong, or they're not poly enough, or the jealousy is a sign of love. My partner's not feeling jealous, so they must not love me very much.
Wow. So there's a double edge with the jealousy there. That's really fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just relate to this feeling so much of wanting people to know how normal of an emotion jealousy is, and then we shouldn't be turning it off. We should just be understanding it.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah. And the differences between jealousy and envy, and we don't grow up learning a good emotional vocabulary. And so these words get used technically incorrectly. But it's such a disservice to ourselves, and then in communicating outwardly to our people.
1000%. So well said. We have one more for the quick and dirty. What is one thing that every polycule, no matter who they are, could do for more pleasure right now?
Ooh. Schedule containers of physical intimacy without an expectation of what the physical intimacy is going to look like.
Yes. Okay, I'm gonna please say one more sentence there, because I feel like there might be. I know, I understand I gave you the rules, but just I'm craving a little bit more as to what maybe people are wondering, what could this even look like? What could that look like?
So by a container, I mean setting aside a chunk of predetermined time where everybody agrees to it as though it's like a date or an appointment, like it's on the calendar. And I think that when a lot of people hear schedule sex, what they hear is this not exciting, at 6:05 p.m., this body part will enter this body part. And you're like, cool. And that's really hard to plan because we don't know how we're going to feel. You know, it just, especially for those of us with menstrual cycles, like we literally feel different every day. And that's not the same for someone who doesn't have a menstrual cycle. So schedule a container for physical intimacy without the expectation of the outcome or what it's going to look like. So maybe one night your whole polycule wants to have an orgy. Maybe one night you want to give each other massages, or you give one person a massage with everybody else's hands. Maybe you lay holding hands, watching a show together, no phones, and like just touching. Some sort of physical intimacy and closeness that is dedicated together.
So fantastic. Thank you so much. You made it through the quick and dirty. Thank you so much.
That was fun. I kind of want to do more. I'm like, let's go.
Well, stay tuned because we will have bedroom brainiacs at the end where we will heighten our emotions once more and be excited about trivia. Okay, so now we're going to get into the interview. And I think that I'm not the only person who's curious about the way in which polycules work all over the world. There are different polycules and different people and different relationship structures, but it's very rare that we get to hear from an expert who also is having that experience. So I just am curious if you could share a bit about like yourself and your expertise, and also about your lived experience of being in a polycule and what that looks like.
So professionally, I was always, once I decided I wanted to be a therapist, it was sex and relationships. I was 15.
Wow.
Sex and relationships. And I was so interested. And so I was reading books about like kind of like 90s, 2000s self-help books about relationships long before I was like actually studying psychology. I was just very curious. I like wanted to read advice columns and, you know, try to listen to Dan Savage. So I was very interested in relationships. And so when I got into college for psychology and then grad school for clinical psychology, any elective I took was sex and relationship based. And I had a whole class on essentially like marginalized communities under the relationship and sex umbrella. So it was all about the queer community and the history and like different clinical things that might come up in a room with queer folks versus hetero folks. In a similar way that like we had a multicultural counseling course. And I had never actually heard of non-monogamy or polyamory until one of those classes. And I remember sitting in there and learning and thinking like, whoa, this feels like they're talking about me. But because the lens was academic, the way that wound up manifesting is I got really, really involved in working with the queer, kink, and non-monogamous community. And then on a personal level, as I was hearing more and more people's experiences and stories, I started realizing like, oh, this is me and not like a choice I'm making. Like, this is how I'm wired. And I looked back at diary entries from when I was in high school, and it's like this young girl who thinks she's so broken because I was non-monogamous, but there was no model for that. There was no language for that. So it's all like, I'm slutty, or maybe I'm not ready for a relationship, right? Like it was so mononormative. And in queerness, I like flip back and forth. Like, I'm gay, I'm straight, I'm gay, I'm straight, because no one told me what bisexuality was.
Like,
and these
you
poor
can
people,
have both. You can have it all.
These poor humans out there. I was like, I love vaginas. Nope, I love penises. Nope, I love vagina. And it's like, oh my God. So all of that kind of then culminated in when I met my now ex-husband, who is still a dear friend. Love you, Kyle. On our very first date, I was like, so I'm bisexual and I think I don't want to be monogamous for most of my life. And he was like, me too. To both.
Oh.
And I sat there like,
match made in heaven.
Oh my God. And at the time, he had not told anybody about his bisexuality. It was like this really wonderful bonding experience. So he and I were together. We were monogamous for a while, and then we decided to be poly. And along the way, we met many different people. And it culminated in being in a polycule with 2 other people. It was 4 of us. We were all living together. We were all involved except for the 2 guys who would play in the same space sexually, but they weren't like directly romantically or sexually involved. And that is the family that I got pregnant with, that my partner got pregnant with. And it looks a little different now. It's, just me and Ashley. We are also dating other people, which some folks will still use the term polycule, and some folks will use the term constellation. So Ashley's partner, who I'm not involved with, is my metamor. Mm-hmm. And some people would say, well, yeah, he's part of your polycule. And other people would say that that is misleading and saying that I'm involved with him, and they would use the term constellation. And so when we're talking about polycules, there's like these 2 different angles that I think people come at it from. And it's important to just make sure whoever you're talking to that you're like actually talking about the same thing.
Super helpful background. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, good. I'm glad that answered.
No, like to a T. Yeah, I was also riveted. I like kind of forgot where I was for a moment. But this is so okay. I first of all, I have so many reactions. First, I think like that's so wonderful that you kind of came alive in a way, like in this class and in your internship, of being like, this is who I am. Like, I loved that. I loved what you said of they're talking about me. Like, it's that like meme from Euphoria of like, is this fucking play about us? Like, you're just like, yes, that is me. That is who I am. And I like the rewriting of like no, like, this is just who I am. And this is like, I'm not broken. This is how I'm wired. And I also love that, and it's great that you and your ex-husband have a great relationship, and on your first date that you both were like on the same page, because oftentimes, at least anecdotally, it feels like people kind of their sexuality and their like desire to open or not open their relationship kind of changes over time. And very rarely do you hear 2 people who know exactly what they want in that moment and come together and say, this is the kind of life that we want. So I think that's really wonderful.
Thank you.
And it's a helpful framing too of constellation and metamor as well as polycule. And I guess a follow-up before we move on is like, is a polycule something you are interested in being in potentially again in the future? I know you said you have 2 toddlers. I'm sure it's a very crazy time in your life. What's it like being poly with kids? Like, I have so many questions followed up before we even
stay here for 18 hours.
Forever. But yeah, what do you think about some of those things?
So it's interesting. I don't have a desire to share a small New York City apartment with anybody else besides Ashley or my kids.
Yeah.
With that said, one of my dreams in life would be to like own, 3 brownstones on a block, or even 1, and have some communal space, like a floor that's communal, and then some private spaces. That is like polycule vibes.
Yeah. That's the next HBO sitcom. There's something there.
Oh God. Yeah, that'd be scripted though, not reality.
Yes, exactly.
needed scripted.
Yes.
So in that way, yes. But in the way of like having another person that I am financially entangled with, legally entangled with. And I've said I think I'm good on things before and change my mind in the future.
You have that right to change your mind, yeah.
Right now, that wouldn't be something that I'm like seeking.
Totally.
But I love community and living in community. And, I have Ashley, I have another partner here in New York, and then I have my platonic life partner in Chicago. And so if we could all live in a big, great place in Brooklyn, sign me up.
Yes. You have a community garden. There's the vision's there. There is something there. I think something that I talked about with Dr. Lex Brown James in a recent episode we had this season was about like, because we did a whole episode about sex after divorce and just the idea of celebrating relationships for what they are. And even if relationships end, it doesn't mean it was a failure. Like however long you were together and happy, like that is a successful relationship that deserves celebrating. And I, whether monogamous or poly, like in both those relationship structures, that sentiment is still true. And I find to be very important. And I just think it's so important and wonderful that you're open about your story and willing to share it. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I think that's something the poly community really gets right, generally speaking, is kind of this concept of de-escalation. Whereas in monogamy, it's a bit more black and white. Not to say that it's never in the gray, but like you're either together or you're broken up. Right. And then once you're broken up, there are these like societal expectations around what that means and contact with exes and all of that. In polyamory and in non-monogamy in general, there's this concept of de-escalation, which is like how we are relating right now is not working. So I don't want you to not be in my life. Maybe you won't be for a little bit as we transition with this de-escalation. But let's tone it down, and a lot of the things that were the quote unquote problems in my relationship with Kyle, they were things that through de-escalation made them go away. We didn't then have to navigate those because we were in a different form. And so now I'm like thrilled to talk to him. And, I want to get his memes on Instagram and all of this because we are relating in the way that works for us after 10 years of relating in a different way, and acknowledging that can be really hard. But I think that it's something that non-monogamy, like culturally speaking, does that. And frankly, even some monogamous people in queer spaces do as well, I've seen. But like the mononormative, heteronormative relationship, I rarely see that.
Totally. That really is something that people in monogamous relationships can learn. It's like the going to couples therapy to break up thing of like, what is 8 sessions of us talking about the things that we want to talk about to, in a nice, kind way, kind of slowly separate from each other's lives rather than the I don't know you anymore kind of thing, because it can be very stark and quite intense and traumatic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Wild. Meet the new Magic Wand Waterproof, my go-to shower toy. It's the most powerful magic wand ever made, chock full of those famous deep rumbly vibrations, now totally cordless and totally bath friendly. We're talking about using this in the shower, check. Tub, check. You get 4 intensity levels, 4 vibration patterns, an intuitive control panel, and that soft silicone head with the flexible neck Magic Wand is known for. Long-lasting rechargeable battery, full-size power, and lots of amazing orgasms. The Magic Wand Waterproof. Pleasure just went aquatic. Let's talk about solo sex. Masturbation can help reduce stress, improve sleep, and help you figure out what actually feels good for you. One of my go-tos when I'm having me time is Uberlube. It's super smooth, it lasts a long time, and it helps every touch feel better, truly. It's also latex compatible, so it's great with condoms, and it even helps reduce chafing for workouts or thigh rub season. Also, here's a very fun fact. Stylists use it as a hair serum flyaway tamer. Pretty cool. Uberlube is a real multitasker. If you're curious, try it for yourself. Use code SEXEDWITHDB for 10% off at uberlube.com and see why Uberlube is my all-time fave. Let's get to pleasure, because that's what this season is all about. What's the most pleasurable thing about polyamory to you? Like how can being poly help people communicate? How can it help someone learn something about themselves? Like what feels pleasurable and exciting about polyamory to you?
Oh my God. That's, first of all, such a good question and also so hard to answer. I I think that most parts of it are pleasurable for me. The ability, so for me, because it's an orientation, it's the ability to be my full self at all times. And that is like the highest form of pleasure on a self level.
Completely agree.
So that is like, for me personally, number one. For some people, that might not be it. There is a level of diversity and excitement and newness that, if done well, can then carry through to all of your relationships. And the ripple effect of that is so pleasurable. So pleasurable. And of course, on the flip side of the coin, you have the like negative ripples as well. Not as pleasurable.
Right.
And with that being said, like that to me is worth the other side of it. These like really pleasurable ripples. You know, I think that for anybody who is not on the asexual spectrum, like variety and novelty with sex is pleasurable. You know, we do a lot of talking in the non-monogamous community about how it's not just about sex, like, because there's this assumption that it is. And it's not just about that. It can be for some people, but it's not just about that for the majority of people. And there is this opportunity that you have to like try new things with new people and do things potentially that one of your partners isn't into or just simply like doesn't like. So when done in a healthy way and mindful way, I think that that's a really, really pleasurable piece, both emotionally and physically.
Completely. Yeah. No, I love the idea of like, it's not just about sex, but sex is good and important also. I think it's like you want to make the blanket statement so people don't assume that that's the whole thing. Like there's a lot of, you know, we've done a lot of chatting with folks about polyamory and about how we had Claire Perlman on, who's like, if scheduling is your kink, then like polyamory may be for you. Like it's all about scheduling. It's a lot of calendars. It's like,
it's funny, Danielle, I was going to say that scheduling, when it all fits in, it's like finishing a puzzle.
Yes.
Which is like so
the
fucking
ultimate
pleasurable.
pleasure to like Tetris your calendar colors together.
Yes, exactly. But the getting there, in the same way that if you're doing a puzzle and you're like, oh, I have to step away. It's not, what am I not seeing?
Completely. And it's more people, more challenges, you know, it's just like, it's a lot.
Yeah. And as you get older, there's like more things, you know, the person that I'm partnered with out here in New York has a child and a wife. And so like their schedules also matter. I have 2 kids. I have a wife, you know, there's just like, there's a lot of people that someone needs to create an app for calendaring with
I'm
Poly.
sure it's on the way.
Please let me know if you're out there.
Yeah, if you're listening and you're an app developer and you're interested in making a polycule or polyamorous app, please let us know.
Yes.
Write in at sexedwithdb@gmail.com. Okay, so the difference, at least my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, between like being polyamorous and being a part of a polycule is that being polyamorous is all, yeah, they're both like, that's an orientation of like, I am going to potentially have more than one partner, even if I'm solo poly, even if I don't currently have a partner, you know, I'm interested in, you know, not being monogamous and having more than one connection, whether that be romantic, sexual, what have you. Whereas it seems to me that being a part of a polycule is kind of this like intentional like group of, you know, 2+ people who are interested in intermingling their lives and their connections in a different way than, you know, necessarily someone who's poly who has a metamor would. Is that how you would describe a polycule, or am I missing something?
I think that is accurate. And I think that most people's definition of a polycule for them is accurate. it's just important that if you say to someone, for example, I'm looking to be a part of a polycule, that's fine. And expand on what that means, because the person that you're talking to might hear that and think something else. And so, I mean, this is the case with so many words in general.
Right.
But because we're talking about polycules, I agree with your definition. I think that it's like an intentional building of like some sort of family almost.
Totally. And would you kind of described your polycule dynamic where, you know, there was you and your ex-husband and then your partner, Ashley, and then she had a partner. And the male partners, you said, weren't, you know, sexually or romantically connected, but everyone else was. And I'm curious if in, you know, clients that you see and anecdotally, like folks who you engage with who are in polycules, would you say that that's a pretty common dynamic? Like what kind, can you just speak to like maybe folks who are listening are like, oh, is that quote unquote typical? Or I'm just curious to get your thoughts on that.
You know, I have seen polycules of all shapes and sizes. I've seen them as triads. I've seen them as quads where it's two existing couples that wind up meeting. I've seen it as like a collection of 6 or 7 people that are like all kind of linked up, you know, maybe perhaps in a similar way with ours where like the 2 men would engage if we were there, but like they weren't going out of their way to engage sexually on their own. So very similar dynamics, just how the people get there is different. Like the route to polycule is different. But I wouldn't say largely based on my experience working with people that it is the most common or typical that it's 2 couples coming together.
That's interesting.
And I think part of that is because we're finally talking about this stuff. So people are learning about it from a younger age and are able to do kind of what Kyle and I did, my ex-husband, which is like, I think I don't want to be monogamous forever. I'm good with it right this second, right? And these conversations are happening at the beginning of relationships versus in the middle after 25 years.
Right.
I think that that's happening because people didn't know what it was. In the same way that when I was sitting in grad school, I was like, oh my God. Right. And then even after that, it took me a while to like marinate and integrate it and then embody it. And so for someone who is, you know, in their 50s or 60s, that just within the last year learned what non-monogamy was.
Right.
If they have that same realization I did, I was in my early 20s, they might have been with their partner for 30 years. Right. And then the other person is like, what? You what?
Complete
And
mind
it's like,
blown.
no, and it's like, no, I've kind of always thought about this, but I thought I was wrong. So I think we get there in a lot of different ways. And I'm seeing more and more intentionality from younger people coming in. Us old folks just have fallen into it.
Would you say, like, okay, so back on the pleasure aspect of this, you know, I have kind of some of these follow-up questions of like, how can being poly and in a polycule help people communicate with all of their partners better? Like what does communication maybe look like under a polycule in a healthy way? And how does that relate to pleasure?
Recent research shows that sexual assertiveness, essentially knowing what you want, what you like, and stating that pretty clearly is very highly correlated with overall relationship satisfaction, not even just satisfaction with your sex life. So if you then take that and look at other studies about just relationships in general, healthy, good communication, effective communication is one of the highest predictors of a happy, healthy relationship. In a polycule, you are dealing with a lot of different people and a lot of different dynamics. There's the individual relationships. There's kind of like these triad relationships that can form within a polycule that's bigger than 3. And then you have like the group as a whole. Let's say with 4 people, that's 3 different people and their communication styles that you have to learn, adjust to. You're teaching them yours. Then you have like the 2 different 3 triangles that come. So that's 5. And then the group of 4, that's 6. So you're essentially
Jesus.
like, right. You're essentially learning how to communicate in 6 different ways. And if you're starting from, I don't even know how to communicate to one person, that's going to be like, I can't do this. It is simply a skill set. And frankly, things like this are why I'm like, it's not just about sex. You don't understand. We talk so much. So I know we've all heard communication is the most important thing. It's not just about talking. It's not just about listening. It's both, and the dynamics that are at play, and being able to utilize like a set of tools, communication tools, to show up as your best self in those situations as well.
Hondo P. Let's talk about jealousy again, because I think that we talked briefly about that in the quick and dirty. And I'm curious to just get your take on like what it's like having conversations about jealousy in a polycule. Like if there are 6 different ways that you're communicating, or there's 6 different ways that you're like feeling jealous, like what does that look like? And how does that kind of influence the way in which like a polycule runs successfully and happily?
Similar to every other human emotion, if we understand it, know how we experience it, can identify it, can communicate it, and know how we best cope with it, then it won't wreak havoc. But if we don't know those things, it can. And that's not just unique to jealousy, right? Like if our anxiety could be the same way. Happiness, honestly, could even be the same way. Like if we are able to identify, okay, I'm feeling this, and I know that it is jealousy because XYZ. Now I'm going to think about how I want to communicate that to my partner or partners. And if I have an ask for them, if this is an indication that we need a new or adjusted agreement, or if I'm sharing with them because I want them to be close to me emotionally. And that's where the self-awareness and then also communication skills kind of come together. But I would say for anybody, start with learning emotional literacy and vocabulary. I actually just got to this section in the DBT group I'm running for non-monogamous folks, and it's all about enhancing emotional vocabulary. And so it goes through like, here are 15 other words for anger. Here's how anger could feel in the body. Here's how, and every time I read through these, I'm like, this is so good. And I do this every day for work. And I'm like, still like, wow, yeah, no, that's true. Because it changes, right? Like how I felt angry at 15 is not how I feel angry now. And my coping skills from then are certainly not what I use now. So getting on your own the knowledge and awareness and getting in tune with yourself, getting the communication tools so that you can then feel confident about how you're sharing what you're discovering and aware of. And then, of course, hopefully your partner and partners are doing work on their end to also have that vocabulary and literacy and how to listen and how you need to be responded to and what you need when you're sharing feelings like that.
Super helpful. Wow, this is so wonderful. I really want to move on to bedroom brainiacs, to our really fun trivia. But I guess the final question that I have for folks who are either interested in non-monogamy or are poly and are kind of like intrigued by the idea of going from being polyamorous to being in a polycule, what investigative kind of questions would you recommend that they ask themselves, ask their partners, and kind of take that next step to gain more insight and knowledge into that?
Drop the word polycule and ask yourself, what is this that I'm wanting? And actually don't use any labels and write down what it looks like, what someone else would see, what it feels like. How do you want to feel? Describe it as though you don't know what it's called. And I think that doing that will actually allow someone to access the pieces that might be blocked by own like internalized stigma or internalized shame that sometimes even just the word poly can trigger in us.
Awesome. So great. These are such great practical tips. We're going to keep going with polycule trivia, actually. This is a bedroom, or more so just poly, but you know, this is about polycules, so we'll see what kinds of trivia questions we have here. But this next segment is called Bedroom Brainiacs, and we are going to do a little bit of trivia together to see what's going on in the zeitgeist. And the first question is about Nepo babies. And it's a multiple choice. So don't worry. Okay. Which of the following Nepo babies has come out as poly? Is it A, Dakota Johnson, B, Gwyneth Paltrow, C, Bella Hadid, or D, Willow Smith? Any guesses?
I think it's D.
That's correct. I feel like Willow Smith is a great obvious choice because I feel like, I don't even know if they go by they them, but I just feel like they just are such a queer personified person to me that it doesn't surprise me at all that they are poly. They came out in 2021 and or I guess she goes by she her. She has a quote that says, "With polyamory, I feel like the main foundation is the freedom to be able to create a relationship style that works for you and not just stepping into monogamy because that's what everyone around you says is the right thing to do."
Yep.
Sound off, Willow Smith.
She got it.
She crushed. This is a spoiler if you watch any of these old TV shows that I'm about to say, but not really, because I think they all came out in the mid 2000s, whatever. So the second question is, which TV show ended with the main characters in a polycule as a way to resolve their love triangle square sort of situation? Is it A, The Vampire Diaries, B, Riverdale, C, Glee, or D, The 100? This is a hard one. If you don't know these shows, this is tough.
I only know the two middle ones, which tells you so much about my view. I can't remember. Is it Riverdale?
That's the answer. Oh my God, Rachel, you're good. Wow. Okay.
I really try to stay like in the knowledge of polymedia stuff, but I'm really glad to know that it worked.
That's awesome. But yes, for real, Riverdale, spoilers, even it's possible to spoil an unintelligible show such as Riverdale and an old show.
I was going to say, I can't,
no pressure here. It's fine to spoil. But it ended with the four main characters in a poly relationship, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It was a long journey there, if I remember.
Long journey. I never watched an episode, but I support everyone who watches Riverdale. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This is kind of a funny one. So number 3, which of these is the real title of an anime about a polycule? Is it A, The 100 Girlfriends Who Really, 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 Really Love You? B, My Girlfriend and Her Boyfriend and Me? C, Stuck in Ancient History as the King with 7 Wives? Or D, Reincarnated as the Villainess, I'll Marry All the Heroes? This is impossible.
Truly have no idea. I'm just going to go. I'm going to go with A because it tickled me.
That's the answer. You really should buy a lottery ticket today. That's insane. Okay, this is the 100. Let me make sure I got all the right reallys. The 100 Girlfriends Who Really, 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 that's 5, love you. This is a genuinely loving and sweet anime that was a smash hit in its very funny season in 2023. And there's a lot of jokes in it, but polyamory is never one of them. There are 100 girlfriends that love their boyfriend, and they're all one happy, loving polycule, even with their differences. That's cute. I know. That's really cute.
I love it.
I cannot believe how much you're crushing this. Okay. Maybe you'll get the next one because you have toddlers. So the next one is, we have two more. Which animated show did not have any canon poly characters? So did not. Is it A, Steven Universe, B, She-Ra, C, Adventure Time, or D, Bluey?
I've only watched Bluey out of this.
Are there any poly dogs in that
Not
show?
to my knowledge. So I'll go Bluey.
That's the answer, yeah. In Steven Universe, there's Fluorite, who's a manifestation of a relationship between several gems. Apparently, they are aliens. We're not going to unpack how this works. But in She-Ra, there is Lonnie, Kyle, and Rogelio. And in Adventure Time, there's Tree Trunks, Mr. Pig, and her alien boyfriend, with whom she has 5 children. And also, she is a tiny elephant. Fun fact.
Wow. I'm learning so much.
Me as well. This is all honestly thanks to my amazing producer, Will, who put in these awesome questions. Great job, Will.
Oh, yeah, truly.
So yeah, no Polly in Bluey, which is okay. We only have one more. Can she make it 100%? I am
now. I'm nervous. I'm sweating now.
Now her pits are sweating. All right, let me see what's going to happen. Number 5. Which of these groundbreaking queer musicians has come out as polyamorous like Willow Smith? Is it A, Sam Smith, B, Janelle Monáe, C, Chappell Roan, or D, Lil Nas X?
Janelle Monáe.
Ding, 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 ding. You got 100% of the questions. This is maybe a first, maybe a second in Sex Ed with DB history. I don't know. Very impressed. Wow. Very, very impressed.
As a Virgo, front row of the class student kid, I am very happy right now.
Yeah. So fun facts, Janelle Monáe is non-binary, pan, and poly. And they also came out in 2023. So shout out to all these poly people and this poly trivia. Rachel, this has been so much fun. I feel like there's been such tangible, really wonderful, transparent thoughts, feelings, experiences, advice from you today. So thank you so much for being here. Where can people find you and learn more about you?
You can find me on Instagram. Hopefully, if my account lives another day, we take it day by day.
Day by day.
The handle is at the Wright Rachel, so WRIGHT_RACHEL. And then my website, which is rachelwrightnyc.com. And that has like free stuff and blogs and, all the shit websites have.
All the stuff. Well, you rock. Again, I've been a big fan for a long time, so thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me, and big fan right back.
Welcome to the Afterglow, where we wind things down, reflect on big takeaways, and leave you with one juicy thing to try, think about, or explore before next week. I am so happy that we got to have Rachel Wright on to talk about polycules. She is so much fun. We had such great chemistry. And she's someone who isn't just a therapist focused on relationship systems, but is polyamorous herself and has been in a polycule. Like with Rachel, the road to being in a polycule can be rocky. There is so much stigmatization around being romantically or sexually attracted to more than just one person. You can be seen as non-committal or being too immature to hold down a relationship. You can also be seen as sexually promiscuous or strange for wanting to live with multiple people and have multiple people in your family structure like that. But with most narratives around people who don't conform to a social norm, these are mostly myths. Of course, there will always be poly people who are immature or non-committal, but the same is true with monogamous people. We're all just people. Polyamory, like monogamy, is just a type of relationship structure. Some people are wired for it. Like Rachel said, she knew when she was young that she was just wired that way. Some people actively choose it, and some people have absolutely zero interest in it. All of that is totally fine. Nobody is trying to force you into a relationship structure that you're not interested in. And if they are, that is not the foundation of a healthy relationship. Nobody should be forced into becoming polyamorous or being in a polycule or being monogamous, because neither relationship structure is wrong. Neither is doomed to fail or guaranteed to make you happier. It's just who you are and what you want out of your relationship structure. And now here's your pleasure practice of the week. I really like this one. This week, imagine what it might look like for you to be in a poly relationship. Don't worry about if you feel jealous about your partner seeing someone else. This is a fantasy. Just focus on you. Imagine a perfect world where polyamory is frictionless and fun. Who would you want in your polycule? Make a little list. It could be actual crushes that you have in real life. It could be celebrities. It could be fictional characters. The world is your oyster. If you have a partner or multiple partners, it would be especially fun to make lists separately, and then you could share them as long as you're keeping it light and silly and sweet. Let your imagination run wild, because life is too short to not use your fantasies. Thank you so much for listening. Love y'all. Talk to you next week.